Don't think of God as somebody who's like just off on the sidelines trying to shout out orders of how you should play the game, but to see Him right there with us, giving us wisdom, loving us along the way. I think so much of it comes back to trusting God. We've talked about before where, with Adam and Eve in the garden, they doubted not God's presence, but they doubted God's love. And they because of that doubt, they turned away and tried to seek their good apart from God. One of the struggles that we need to come to realize is that there's going to be a lot of temptations in life, that we're going to come across many crossroads of whether or not we're going to follow God's plan for our life and for our marriage, or we're going to follow our own plan. And when it comes to those crossroads, an invitation for all of us is to ask the question, am I trusting God fully in this? That no matter how difficult God's plan is for me, whether it's the struggle of contraception, maybe crossing that decision of whether do we follow the church's teaching or do we just do our own thing, or whether it's something along the lines of how we spend our weekends. Are we going to go ahead and just stay home on Sunday, or are we going to go to church on Sunday? To something, whatever. There's so many things that happen, whether with our finances, how we're going to live our marriage, how we're going to overcome struggles. Are we going to try to trust in God to help us overcome this, to help us along the way? Or are we going to try to rely on our own strengths and our own ideas of what we think will work? And I think that I guess if someone's struggling with that, the big thing would be to surrender all of that into prayer. Don't think of God as somebody who's like just off on the sidelines trying to shout out orders of how you should play the game, but to see Him right there with us, giving us wisdom, loving us along the way, guiding us to our ultimate home of where we're called to be, where our hearts desire. I mean, God knows our desires better than we do. He wants to fulfill our desires more than we do. But the question is that do we trust Him? Do we trust God that He's going to be there? That if we step out in faith, are we going to fall flat on our face, or are we going to fall into His arms? And those steps, no matter how small those decisions are of trusting God, they build on Him. They build one to the next. That once we continue to take those steps in faith and trusting in God's plan and trusting in God's way and trusting in God's grace and His love and His strength for us, that no matter what happens, that a death in the family, a diagnosis of some disease or illness or cancer, that there's some crossroads, some terrible thing that could happen, that God is with us, that we can trust in Him in these steps, that He's going to get us through it. That it might not look pretty. I mean, if on the road to Calvary, Jesus Himself fell 3 times on the cross. And the weight of that cross was so great that someone else had to help Him along the way and carry that cross to the end, where He had to die on that cross. And He had to give Himself completely, surrender it completely over into the Father's will. But through that gift of self, through that passion, we have a resurrection. And we need to trust and believe, is God with us? Is He present in our lives? Does He love us? Does He really have a plan that's not outdated, that's not overbearing, that is something that is freeing and going to help us along the journey? Do we believe that? And if we struggle with our faith, to surrender that, say, God, I want to take that step, but I feel so weak. I feel so tempted. I feel so lost. Let Him know. Speak to Him, and trust more and more of those feelings over to Him and surrender them over to Him. wherever your thoughts are, wherever your struggles are, wherever your confusions lie, just to continually to give that over to God and to trust Him and to ask for the grace to take that step. And every step we take is a step closer to Him, a step closer to our happiness, a step closer to our resurrection.